If you're an active adult and you are getting frustrated because you just can't seem to get more flexible in the right ways no matter how hard you try, today's video is going to help you big time. We're going to be talking about 5 mistakes that stop you from getting more flexible. And we're going to be talking with a real expert in the field, a physical therapist who himself has had to battle through real stiffness and who wanted to get stronger while getting more flexible. He's been through the gauntlet and he's gonna sit down today with us and explain 5 big mistakes that stop you from getting flexible. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. So I am here with Garrett, Dr. Garrett, who is going to explain 5 reasons why you are not getting more flexible. All right, so let's start with the number 1 thing on our list. What are people doing wrong that's stopping them from getting flexible?
The first thing, which I would say could be said about any other training modality you're getting into, is you're not making flexibility training your priority. I think oftentimes people are afraid to kind of let go of some of the activities they're already doing, maybe some of the things that are making them stiff, to add in more, intense flexibility work that's going to lead to adaptations.
So like what pops immediately into my mind is I've gotten so many emails and messages from runners and people who like to lift weights, and they're like, hey, I want to run 100 miles a week and also get more flexible. How come I'm not getting more flexible? I'm stretching 10 minutes a day. What's the deal?
Yeah, so I think commonly people look at the flexibility training as the thing they do prior to their main form of training, whether that's running or weightlifting. Maybe I'll warm up with some stretching, or I'll cool down with a little bit of stretching.
Right.
But if you actually look at flexibility training as the main portion of your workout, then you're going to actually make adaptations favorable to flexibility. Because now if you're just, if it's just the thing that you do at the end of your workout where you're already exhausted, you can't put any mental focus into these exercises, you're not going to get much out of them.
Right.
Because if you're doing flexibility training correctly, it's an intense form of training. You're doing multiple sets, you're creating strength through your end ranges, you're working hard, and it's very neurologically taxing too. Spending time in a maximum end range position that's not comfortable is very tough. You have to quiet your brain that wants to freak out.
Yeah.
So if you've done a stretching session, correctly, you'll know that you're pretty wiped afterwards, and it's tough to fit in a lot of other exercise. So your training has to be programmed according to account for the flexibility that you want to train.
Yeah, so if you want to get more flexible, you got to make it a priority and actually plan to do it really in a focused way.
Yep.
So what's our number 2 mistake?
Well, this actually leads into the number 2 mistake, because this actually goes for a lot of the fitness junkies out there who maybe have made flexibility their priority, but now they're doing too much.
Okay.
So, and that could look like they're doing too much training outside of their flexibility work, or there's too much stress in their life, too much life stress outside of training and flexibility work, or they're stretching too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think people look at flexibility work as, something that you have to do every single day to get more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we look at flexibility training, proper flexibility training, like a strength stimulus, how often are you going to back squat heavy or deadlift heavy, maybe once or twice a week, and then you need some recovery throughout the week. If we look at flexibility like that, then we could say, okay, maybe we don't have to stretch that intensely every single day.
But like you have focused intense sessions a couple times a week rather than saying, I'm going to do 110% every single day. Like there's basically no realm in our lives where 110% every single day ends up giving us the result we want.
Right.
Right.
And I do think to get more flexible, you have to use your ranges of motion, as much as possible to convince your nervous system that, hey, this is something we want to keep on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean you have to train to improve range of motion every single day.
Right. You don't want to be pushing it so hard every day, trying to build extra every single day.
Right.
Okay.
So recovery is actually really important with flexibility training.
Okay.
And also, managing stress on a day-to-day life, whether that's sleep, are you stressed at work? Are you doing too much in the gym otherwise. You know, strength training, running, all these things can overflow the cup. You know?
Right. So it's just like you're trying to do all these things in your life. You just don't have the capacity to do all those things, accomplish all those things, and get more flexible.
Yeah, to recover from it all and adapt positively to it.
Right. All right, well, what's number 3?
The opposite to that is you're doing too little. So,
Okay.
I mean, there's plenty of people who wonder why they're not getting flexible when they sit at a desk all day, they drive to work, they come home, they sit for dinner, watch some TV. It's like, why am I not getting flexible? Even though they're doing some stretching every day.
20,
They're
30 minutes somewhere. Yeah.
They're consistent with stretching. But now I'm not one to say like, oh, you have to offset all the sitting you're doing. I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting. You know, we're both online coaches and trainers. Like we live in a desk, yet I'm still getting flexible, you know, over the course of months.
Right, yeah.
So it's one of those things where you're probably not stretching intensely enough.
Right.
So I think people, they think a consistent stretching practice, a very low intense stretching every single day. I do think that's going to work, you know, for some people to get more comfortable in their ranges and, you know, understand how to make it a part of their daily life. But they do need to have a few days a week where they're actually pushing the boundaries and they're stretching in a way that is almost creating a bit of soreness and requires a recovery demand.
So that's probably a topic we should dive into in a separate video. And if you want that video, just drop a comment about it. But it's super important. I think you're referencing loaded stretching and making sure the muscles have to work at length, right? So again, if you want that video, drop a comment. This actually rolls right into our next item. So what's the number 4?
So the next one is you're only sticking to one form of stretching modality.
Okay.
There is. I mean, stretching and flexibility training is this blanket term for, you know, developing end range of motion, which can be done in multiple different ways. So we talked about, you know, using stretching as a strength stimulus and then using stretching as just like this passive thing you do to feel good. Both are important. You know, we want to be strong through our ranges, teach our nervous system we can create force here, and it, you know, makes us feel safe, so it allows us more range, but also we want to be comfortable and we want to be able to relax into ranges without having to be forceful and stressed,
Right.
and, you know, produce these intense contractions to access a range. It should just be there. So I think you need both sides of the spectrum where, you know, you're just doing some work to get comfortable, build tolerance to a stretch, and build strength. There's a mechanical and both neurological properties to flexibility. It's not just one or the other.
So I think for the general non-fitness, non-mobility educated person out there, when they hear stretching, it's I'm going to just kind of do this, I'm going to go to the position and stay here for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. But this isn't the only kind of stretching there is what you're saying.
You can go into that same kind of position and you can go hands-free and you can learn to, you know, produce force from those end range stretch positions. Now we can do stretching where we have gravity assisting us, where we're loading the lengthened side, right? I'm loading the hamstrings. You know, this kind of good morning hinge position is forcing the hamstrings to work hardest at its end range. Now we can do exercises that are gravity resisted. Okay. So I could even try to lift my leg up from an end range position, teach my hip flexors, my quads, my low abs to understand how to pull myself into hip flexion and be stable in this end range. And that way, when I'm in this position, I can actually focus on creating that co-contraction here where I'm stabilizing from the shortening side here.
So that it feels safe, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we're strong on both sides of the joint. So there's another form of stretching called, you know, agonist strength training, where the agonist muscle is the muscle that pulls you into a stretch position. So if we use that hamstring example, the hip flexors, quads, rectus femoris, low abs, even the adductors are going to assist in hip flexion. Maybe we want to strengthen those in their shortened ranges to help assist our lengthening work.
That makes so much sense. So what Garrett's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is you can't just do static stretching. It cannot just be static stretching every single day, even if you do it every day, might give you some gains, but you're not going to see the long-term gains that you're looking for.
You know what? Maybe.
That's true.
Like
Maybe.
some people get flexible with
That's
passive
true.
stretching. Some people have this natural affinity to build passive stretching, and all they need to do is
That's true.
static passive stretching, breathe their way into ranges, and they
That
got
is
their
true.
splits. Other people who are stiff,
Like you.
naturally, like us, it's like we needed to stretch with added load. We needed the extra leverage to push us into a position and, create strength there to convince our nervous system that
It's going to be safe.
it's going to be safe. We could produce force here. Because I grew up, just running, playing sports.
Yeah.
This was all my body knew.
Right.
It didn't know hip flexion. I sat in chairs in school. Like I was never exposing my body to end ranges of motion.
Right.
So don't expect it to be there into adulthood if you've never been there before.
Right.
Now you're going to have to do some more convincing for your nervous system than just stretching.
Just static stretching? Maybe, but if you're stuck, probably not just that.
And then there's the other side of the coin where just strength work isn't enough as well.
Right.
Because I've worked with plenty of Olympic weightlifters and just weightlifters in general who are actually pretty strong at their end ranges. But if you ask them to pause in an end range, they freak out. Their nervous system just freaks out. They can't relax. They can't melt into it, even under load.
Oh, interesting. So their muscles are just staying real tense, ready to go. You can't.
Yeah, so they need more static work.
All right, so what's the number 5?
Number 5 would be patience and time. I would refer to this more so while you're doing a stretching session itself, but then also the time frames that it takes to get more flexible.
Okay.
You're just not being realistic with your time frames. In reference to the flexibility session itself, I think most people don't spend enough time in their stretches to actually get the release they're looking for and really melt into end ranges. They also don't do them for multiple sets.
Right.
Because there's this potentiation effect that happens kind of set to set of a stretch. So say I just do, a long duration passive stretch for my hamstrings, it feels like crap the first set. Most people would just walk away after that and be like, oh, that's my end range for the day. It's more effective actually to do multiple sets of that, maybe 2 to 5 sets of a stretch. I would think the more compound the stretch is, the more you're stretching multiple different things, like say splits, the more kind of coaxing for your nervous system you'll need. So you'll need more sets for that, but more isolated muscle groups, you could get away with 2 to 3 sets.
So one thing you just mentioned was spending long enough time in the stretch. So I just want to pause on that for a second because I've seen people on YouTube make claims like the perfect amount of time you need to hold a stretch is exactly 2 seconds. I've seen this claim, or it's exactly 15, or it's exactly 20.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's going to be different person to person. I mean, a lot of the research shows like 30 to 60 seconds is like, there's no added benefits after 60 seconds. When, I don't think that's true at all. Like there's some muscles that just take longer to release. And a lot of these studies are just done with the calves. So you can't really attribute that to every, muscle in the body. But I would say like when I'm stretching my adductors and my hip flexors, those are both 2 of the most guarded muscles in my body. A 30-second stretch doesn't do much for that, within 1 set. So I'll need to do, whether I'm dynamically moving in and out of the range or holding it statically, it's going to be at least 60 seconds.
Right.
I would say I'm at a point now where I could get away with like a 30-second static hold if I'm using enough load. I could create more of that time under tension at my end range. But it also depends, like, I can hold this stretch, whatever,
For a
5
while.
minutes.
Yeah.
But it's like, am I working at an intensity or am I working at a position that's going to actually drive adaptation? Like the time frame doesn't matter. But what if I was holding, a 16 kilogram kettlebell over my head and I was in this deep lunge position, and I was driving my knee forward, creating a static contraction of my hip flexor, a yielding contraction of my hip flexor, and it's more of a strength effect. Maybe that 30 seconds is pretty intense of a hold.
Yep.
So it really depends on the modality of stretching you're doing and the muscle group itself.
Right.
If I'm holding a side split, I'm probably not going to get to anywhere near my max depth in 30 seconds. Like it probably takes me 30 seconds just to slide into the point where I hit that end resistance, and then it's going to take me like another 60 seconds to actually melt into a range of motion there that my body's like, okay, now I want to come out of it.
So that was our number 5.
That's it.
Anything you want to add to that last point?
Yes. And time frames. So
yeah.
people get so discouraged. It's like I've been stretching for 3 months, 6 months, or even shorter than that. Like I've been stretching for a month.
Right.
And I'm not flexible. Like you see so many programs online, like get your splits in 30 days, or get rid of, or fix your deep squat in 30 days. You know, it's just like, those anger me so much because I've been stretching for, 8 years, 7, 8 years. And if it was that easy, then I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be so passionate about this.
So I wonder, for context, if it would help for people to know, how long did it take, how many years did it take for you to achieve a deep squat that you felt like, yeah, I hit that goal?
I would say it took me 2 years to achieve the deep squat when I was actually in a point where I was training things consistently. I had a coach. I knew I was on the right path. But, I would say prior to that, I was training my flexibility and doing it wrong. I was making all the mistakes I just mentioned. Probably for another like 3 years of just going through the motion, 3-4 years.
5 reasons you're not getting flexible. Let us know what you learned. Let us know what other questions you have. Drop the comments down below. Thanks so much, Garrett.
Thanks, Matt.
I had an awesome time chatting with Garrett, and if you are an athletic person who wants to get stronger and more flexible at the same time in an intelligent and smart way, I highly encourage you to check out his content, go to his website, and even reach out to him for individualized coaching. He is an incredible resource to help you improve your body, and he's hugely beneficial for anyone who wants to be athletic and mobile. I will leave links in the description box so you can find all of Garrett's content. If you are a newbie, you're a desk jockey who's just trying to figure out how to get your body moving right and feeling right, I encourage you to go to uprighthealth.com/DIY. That's my website, where you will find a program that'll help you rebuild your body at home. In the meantime, make sure you click the like button, subscribe, share my videos, and as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't.